Hi everybody, I hope you had a wonderful Easter and a safe one, and that you're all back to your routine, as indeed we are. Peter Clayton behind the camera. I'm Jeremy Cordeaux, the Court of Public Opinion. We're going to get some more technology which we'll try out in the weeks to come. I'd be interested to know what you think. We'll be able to sort of put some of my notes up there under the camera and I can sort of talk more directly to you. But I do refer to my notes because I wake up in the middle of the night and I write all sorts of things down, because if I don't write them down, I forget them. Happy birthday if you're having a birthday. It is April the 11th, 1970. Apollo 13 launched to the moon. Unable to land, returns after 6 days. This is the Houston, we have a problem, which was a considerable understatement. 1970, Apollo 13. I have an interesting story, speaking of space, before I go on with any more dates, and of course the notes that I take in the middle of the night. A coherent radio signal is detected from an alien planet 12 light years away, raising hopes that it could be habitable. See, I got two minds about this. I mean, what are we stirring up here? I would think it's best to sort of pretend no one's at home. Wouldn't that be better? I mean, we've dodged bullets for I don't know how many billions of light years, and now we want to sort of stir them up and make contact. We don't know that they're going to be all that friendly. Scientists say that the radio signal indicates a distant exoplanet which has a magnetic field. It was emitted with the field when the field interacted with charged particles from its star magnetic field. Oh, gobbledygook, gobbledygook, gobbledygook. Anyway, what it says is, if there really are aliens out there, they presumably have some interest in us. I don't find this comforting at all. Scientists have picked up a coherent radio signal from a planet 12 light years away from Earth, which suggests it has a magnetic field. Magnetic fields are essential for a habitable planet, as they protect any life it harbours, that's the planet, from the bombardment of cosmetic radiation and charged particles. Researchers from the US National Science Foundation say the radio signal came from a rocky planet called YZ Cati b, which orbits the small red dwarf star of YZ Cati. Tells me nothing. I would let sleeping, whatever they are, lie. Don't rattle their cage. RMS Titanic leaves Queenstown Island for New York. The White Star Line, 1912, maiden voyage. Ethel Kennedy, she was a lovely lady. 1928 she was born, American human rights campaigner, wife of Bobby Kennedy, born in Chicago, Illinois. I went there on Christmas Eve, however many years that was ago. Long time. Can you remember?
96.
96. My dear friend Tony is sitting in with us today. 96. You've got an incredible memory.
Wasn't it when you got married that time?
Yes, we got married on that at that time. That's what we were over there doing. But the Kennedys, because the Kennedys were very, very good friends of Caroline's father, Andrew Peacock, and they had us around to be part of their family Christmas Eve dinner. It was just wonderful. Lots and lots of children. Never seen so many children in all my life. But lovely family. What else? Jonathan Winters, American comedian. Jonathan Winters Show. Mork and Mindy dies from natural causes, 87. 2013 was the year. The first modern submarine was designed and built by John Philip Holland. It was purchased by the US Navy on this day in 1900. Golly, and people would go down in that? Oh, gee, well, okay. Hugh Jackman got married in 1996. Oh, same year. Hugh Jackman got married. He was 27. He got married to Deborah Lee Furness, 41. St John's Church in Toorak, Victoria, 1996. June Pointer, American pop singer, the Pointer Sisters, 2006, dies of cancer. She was only 52. Great singer. Ronald Reagan arrives home from hospital after the Hinckley shooting. That's the one where he spoke to Nancy and said, "I forgot to duck." 1981, he comes back from hospital. Dynasty and T.J. Hooker actress Heather Lockyer, 45, divorces rock star Richie Sambora. Never heard of him. Irreconcilable differences. Well, it took them 11 years to discover that, but they went on their separate ways. Halley's Comet makes the closest approach to Earth. This trip, 63 million kilometres. But we couldn't see it through the cloud. 1986 was the year. Oh, and Jeremy Clarkson, who has been named as the sexiest man in the world. Can you believe that, Pete? Dear, oh dear. Jeremy Clarkson, the sexiest man in the world, English motoring journalist, broadcaster and TV presenter of Top Gear and the Grand Tour, was born in 1960. Anyway, happy birthday if you're having a birthday or a wedding anniversary. Here in the Court of Public Opinion, we wish you well. And when I left you last week, just before Easter, we were talking about privatisation of our transport system here and the unscrambling of that egg, as Labor wants to do. I'm not sure we should have done it in the first place. I'm a great believer in just keeping essential services in the hands of we the people. After all, they're ours. But on privatisation, the Liberals, I think it was, when they privatised our electricity assets, sold the poles and the wires to a Chinese company, SA Power Networks, I see that, this might interest you, I see that South Australia is 4 times more profitable per household than their UK assets. So in other words, they make 4 times the profit per household here in South Australia than they do out of their entire UK operation. What a deal. What a deal. This is from Sam. Jeremy, you pointed out something interesting the other day. You said that when you were talking about Abraham Lincoln, the difference between people like Lincoln, Churchill, Roosevelt and Menzies, they understood the inspiring or the inspiration that they give people. Leading people, building up, not just tearing down. What we have at the moment, you don't seem to recognise, is a bunch of politicians, numbers people, backroom operators, advisors and apparatchiks. They're not statesmen and women. Jeremy, you can't be so naive. No, look, honestly, Sam, I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you. But I don't know what the hell we do about it. But speaking of naive, we swallow an awful lot of rubbish, helped along by a naive and compliant media. Some of the things that have come up I made a note of over the years. Absolute rubbish things. You remember the paralysing advance of the greatest menace to face Australia, the invasion of the Queensland cane toad. Do you remember? What happened to that? What happened? Then there was the huge, destructive menace of the crown of thorns starfish. This will be the end of the Great Barrier Reef. Well, it wasn't. It was rubbish. Now we have this trans nonsense. If you took the stories on face value, it will be the end of women's sport. shock horror that if you take the time to Google it, now don't rely totally on Google, mind you, but I find it a very educative experience. Just Google it. There are 1,260 trans people in the entire country. 1,260 people, hardly enough people to invade anything, let alone women's sport. What's going on here? In the old days, we would have called it a beat-up. A beat-up. What about those running shoes? Do you remember? Sand shoes or running shoes with the laces tied together, hanging from overhead wires at nearly every intersection in every city. Who did that? And why? All sorts of stories. I remember somebody saying that, oh, that's to tell you where they do drug deals. Really? Well, if he knew it and he was telling me, why didn't the police know it? I don't know. Then they disappear. No explanation. Drought is another one. Doom and gloom. Doom and disaster. Tim Flannery, illustrious climate scientist, announced, and it was widely covered, it will never rain again. Rubbish. The dams will never fill. No, what we need is a strong, vigilant media to jump on these things as they emerge, not promote them. Call these nonsense stories out for what they are and don't give them the oxygen and the currency and the time that they need to flourish. You might not agree with that. Here's a recent one. What is a man and what is a woman? All of the things and questions we could ask about all kinds of things, why that? What is a man and what is a woman? According to the media, it's what you want. It's what you choose. Rubbish. Our sex is determined by our chromosomes. If I'm not right, please tell me what it is determined by, but that's what I understand. And they, of course, you can't choose. End of story. This came up in New Zealand because the Prime Minister over there, New Zealand Prime Minister, was asked a question. I'm not sure of the context in which the question popped up, but he couldn't answer it. To say he made a fool of himself trying to answer it is an understatement. But not one media outlet over there carried the event, the story, never mentioned it. It's interesting. A free press, a free media, able to jump on things that need to be jumped on. And not selectively. I mentioned here the other day the anniversary of the Rudd government signing us up to the United Nations Human Rights Treaty. I wonder how that sort of sits with Chairman Dan Andrews, Premier of Victoria, headed off to China. Didn't take the media with him, usually does. Took no one with him, not even any trade representatives, just went off to China for talks. And when you think about China's human rights record and all the other things they get up to, saber rattling and the Uyghurs and all of it, trade sanctions, bullying, all the other things they get up to. Do you remember how high-minded the world was over South Africa? South Africa was isolated because of apartheid. It was boycotted, everything. Sport, industry, products, manufacturing. Funny we don't seem to have the same high-minded moral attitude when it comes to China. We have, I think, negotiable integrity. We'll be high-minded if the price is right. We will simply look the other way, if not. I can't think of any other reason that might be behind it, can you? If you're going to make moral judgments about other countries, I think at least we should be consistent. On The Insiders, which I tend to watch, I think a lot of people watch it, even if you don't regularly watch the ABC. It's quite instructive. David Spears, he's, I think, the best talent they have, one of the best in Australia. He put a question to Peter Dutton on the back of the Liberals' failure to win that by-election in Victoria. He said, have you changed your mind about climate change? Hanging on his defeat in Melbourne, the thought that it is the attitude of the Liberal Party to climate change that caused the defeat. That was sort of the inference. And he went on to say, do you accept the scientists when they say that the temperature of the globe has gone up 1.1 degrees and it will be a catastrophe if it gets up as high as 1.5 degrees? Now, this is what's wrong with the Liberal Party. He should have said, simply, David, how do you know that the temperature has gone up 1.1 degrees? And over what period of time? Have you questioned the science and the scientists as you're questioning me? Where were those readings taken, by the way? It has to be at exactly the same time. Were there 10 readings, 50, 500, 5,000 readings? Were they in the southern hemisphere, the northern hemisphere? What time of the day? Was it in a city? The cities, the forests, the beaches, the mountains? You can tell me the science behind what you're saying to me. I will tell you what I think about it. But no, I mean, the Liberals or Conservatives are bullied into all of the nonsense of this great climate con. We just simply have to stand up to it. Otherwise we'll be buried by it. The inconvenient truth is that it can't be, and it isn't, what they pretended to be. The emergency, I mean. And if you doubt what I'm saying, read anything that Professor Ian Plimer has written on the subject. He would be the country's foremost climate scientist. Hardly ever talked to or interviewed in the media. Why? Because what he says does not suit the narrative. That's the truth. Janet says you mentioned the other day that Australia has the 5 strongest banks in the world. Yes, I did. That's true. It is true. But Janet says, what does that mean? I would say that it means that those banks have the 5 strongest balance sheets in the world, least exposed to the economic vagaries, I guess, of the world, less risky lending. I think that's what I understand it to mean. Yeah, I don't know if I've got time. Maybe, one more quick one. I've been storing up over Easter. The Aboriginal voice to Parliament, according to the Prime Minister, only refers to matters that directly affect Aboriginal people. That's what he said. Hang on, Prime Minister. That's everything. Whether it's a question of the RBA lifting the interest rates, or climate change, or a decision to buy new F-35 fighter jets, or any defence issue you can think of, everything that Parliament talks about and decides upon affects Aboriginal people and non-Aboriginal people alike. Every decision made by Parliament affects us all. He can't be so naive, or he can't be silly enough to think that we are so naive. They're going to tie the whole place up in knots, and it won't be the Aboriginal people doing it. It will be the left-wing white activists. The whole thing is a dangerous Trojan horse, if you ask me. And just remember, the simplest and safest thing is, if you have any doubt, don't. I notice, and I'll leave you with this, Galarrwuy Yunupingu has died. He died before Easter, 74 years of age. The Prime Minister called him a great man and a great leader. Former Australian of the Year in 1978. Leader of much of the fight for Aboriginal land rights, the leader of the Northern Land Council, Order of Australia recipient, indeed a grand life, remembered for many things. Something I remember him saying was, "We all have red blood in our veins. We are all one people." Now, I really believe he was right. I believe that is right. I wish the government would start to practice that. I wish the media would start to practice that. Not everybody believes it. The media is not allowed. Now, I know this is very funny sort of logic. I'm tempted to say who says, but apparently it is said. The media is not allowed to use his first name, his Christian name, which is Galarrwuy. Why? They're not allowed to use a picture of him without his family's permission. They cannot use any of his marvellous archival speeches that he made over many years, again, without his family's permission. In this fair and equal country of ours that we are so proud of and much talked about, such strange courtesies are not extended to white people. Why? Treat everybody the same. As Galarrwuy Yunupingu said, we are all one people. What is going on here? Again, we have two completely different arrangements based on the colour of someone's skin. Another example of government-sponsored and government-generated and media-supported racism. Got to go. Thank you so much for your company. Believe in yourself. Pete and I will be back with the Court of Public Opinion come tomorrow. I'm Jeremy Cordeaux. Believe in yourself and goodbye for now.